Some of you may protest, but I don't read. You shouldn't lie in church. Put the next slide up. Read this with me. I can't read. Say it louder.
I can't read.
See, you're lying if you say you can't. Yeah. What you're actually saying is you don't find joy in reading. Would that be more honest? That I can take, that I can understand. Now you're not lying, but there are people on earth who can't read. And for them, how do they get God's word into them? They listen to it. That's how the first century Christians, most of them couldn't read. Most of them didn't have Bibles. They couldn't go down to the Christian bookstore. Books were rare. In fact, books hadn't been invented yet. There were what? Scrolls. You just didn't have a scroll in your house. So you went to church. That's why they were in church a lot, and they were listening to God's word being read. So if reading is hard for you, well, then do that. Buy a Bible, get a Bible app or a Bible on CD and start listening. But for the rest of you, get reading. And you can do this. And push yourself, stretch yourself. There's more in you than you think. Last year, I read a biography on Alexander Hamilton. I think we got a slide from the Broadway play. Anybody see Hamilton by any chance? Has anybody been one of the fortunate ones? Nobody in here. What's that? Oh, you cheated. I watched it too. You can't get a ticket to this till like 2030. It's the most popular play on Broadway. And I could have seen it when it was still, before it hit Broadway. They traveled these productions around. And Janice and I had the opportunity to see it. And I nixed it. I remember her reading it to me. Oh, there's this interesting thing on Hamilton. And it looks like it's in rap, she said. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to that. It'll never be anything. Oh, boy. She's not let me forget that. We could have gone for free. But, talk about your rapper. How many of you have listened to Hamilton and the soundtrack? Nobody? Patrick would know this line. How does an orphan, son of a whore and a Scotsman, dropped in the middle of a forgotten spot in the Caribbean by Providence, impoverished in squalor, grow up to be a hero and a scholar? Yeah? The whole thing is in rap, and it's brilliant. It's the poetry of it. What that line, sorry, that doesn't excite you? Alexander Hamilton, what that verse was saying was the poor, illegitimate child born in the Caribbean in 1755. So do the math. How old was he when the War of Independence started? The War of Independence began in 1776. Alexander Hamilton was 21 when the revolution began. But he was born in the Caribbean, in the poorest of the poor. He became George Washington's aide-de-camp, his chief of staff, his public relations director. Not only in the war did Alexander Hamilton handle most of Washington's correspondence, but he wrote most of his speeches. And in his spare time, he wrote essays and articles laying out the framework of America's future form of government and economic system. Most of the founding fathers were just hanging on for dear life, not even sure if they would win the war. Hamilton was way ahead of them. He was already 20 years ahead of them. He saw before anyone else that the Articles of Confederation would fail. And then unless there was a strong central government and a unified monetary system, that the democratic experiment would fall apart. All this from a man in his mid-20s. My question to you, how did he go from a street rat existence in 1755 to 21 years later becoming one of the most pivotal figures in American history? Do you know how he got there? He read. What he learned about economics came from books. What he learned about military strategy came from books. What he learned about political philosophy all came from books. He had very little schooling. You want to enrich your life. You want to advance your life. You want to become a deeper thinker. You want to sink the roots of your faith deeper than they've ever been before. Then you've got to read.